Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of the Talk That Talk Show with me, Barry Holmes. And we are here for episode 257. I mean, where has the time went? And we are literally almost at the end of the summer. I can't say that I wasn't able to do everything that I wanted to this summer. Even though it seems like the weather's getting a little bit cooler, and we're kind of phasing out of that summertime weather and trying to go into fall. I just want to make sure that we all appreciate the summers that we did have, man, and all the experiences that we had this summer. I feel like when it came down to it, I was able to pile a bunch of different activities into the days that I had not working. It was funny, my boy Ish, he had made a comment when I posted on my story about going out to dinner. I think we were getting some food, me and Doc. But he said it just seems like every time you're not at work, you're out traveling the world. But when he said that, I know he was just joking, but for me, I think it's imperative that when you are working hard, that you take just the amount of time and detail to also enjoy yourself as well too, because not any tomorrow isn't promised. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like for us, we get so caught up in the cycle of being ready for work, trying to get all of our responsibilities done, that at times we sacrifice our own mental health, or we sacrifice the things that we do want to do or enjoy. So this summer really for me has been not only a celebration of the hard work that I've put in through my different ventures, but also just celebrating the fact of how far that I have come so far. It's been a great summer, celebrating a bunch of different things. But, I think the biggest thing to cap off this summer that, again, I'm closing in on has been the 30,000 downloads here at Talk That Talk Show. We're on pace to hit it by next week. And again, I just think it's dope because, when I look back on things, I try to look back as far as where I came as a podcaster. And I just remember having, no Talk That Talk Show background here. And I remember just regurgitating stats and things that I thought people wanted to hear. But, throughout each episode, I've really tried to just highlight not only the things that, I am truly passionate about, but try to deliver it as high quality as possible. I watched a video from my boy, Professor Newman, who I had as a sports management professor way back when I was at York College. And one of the things that I really enjoyed with him was his certain videos that he's kind of made to help public speakers out there to feel comfortable. And, for someone like me who's honing in on 257 episodes as of tonight, it can be at times lost in the process of trying to improve yourself. And I know, looking back at other episodes and even some of my earlier ones, I had a lot more of the filler words and a lot more of the uncertainty. And when I watched, the video from my boy, Professor Newman, he talked about, trying to embrace the pause and, being confident in the words that you're saying and how that can create the appeal for your audience. And I just feel as though people at times just don't take those opportunities to develop whatever craft that they're in because of the success that they've already had. And I think that it becomes very easy to get complacent. But, for me to be able to get to 30,000 downloads, I think it's really important to stay up on your toes. Big shout out to my boy Twin Lay, who's transferred schools. It's going to be important for him to stay up on his game and make sure that he's doing what he needs to do on and off the field to stay on the field. It's a continuous process. If we get comfortable and we get happy with the things that we've already accomplished, there's no way that we can make progress or continue to build on the things that we've already accomplished. Goal setting is huge for me. And I think that to be able to sit back and say, like, damn, we're so close to 30,000 downloads, the first thing I think about is, staying motivated. And it was funny because I had talked to one of my mentors before, and they told me that motivation can't be the sole reason why you're doing something, because there's going to be times when you're not feeling motivated, and those are the times that you got to dig deep the hardest. For my boy Twin Lay, there's going to be times where you might not want to go to football practice. You might not want to, take that little extra time to work on your homework assignment. But, I'm just here to tell you, speaking from experience, when you take the time to prioritize the right things, there's no telling what you can do both on and off the field, man. And for me, it's on the lanes, off the lanes. And I just really feel like the things that I've been able to accomplish outside of this podcast has only helped me to stay centered and stay ready and have the amount of material to continue to record this show. I talked about on the on the post on my Facebook before I started recording, but I've seen so many people try different ventures. I've seen them try podcasting, and after a certain amount of time, you lose track of that motivation, like we talked about, or you run out of things to talk about or run out of ideas. And it's so easy for people to just, quit and, put it to the side and think of something else and try to move on to the next venture. But I'm just here to say that, at 257 episodes, and again, closing in on 30,000 downloads, I wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the support of everyone that tunes in on my Facebook Live or my Instagram, or if you tune into YouTube afterwards. Someone like CJ, who's been on the show as a guest, and someone who I can be honest with in the things that we have goals for achieving with our team. It's those type of people that, you got to keep around you and that motivate you to stay moving in the right direction. Big shout out to Sal, Fab Football. He's somebody who's been, someone I've bowled against, many years, but someone that I've respected because I see a lot of things that I wear confidence-wise in him. You see a guy like him who is not afraid to be himself. He's a New York guy. He's got the grills in his mouth, and he talks shit to anybody. But again, the respect that he's earned, only comes from the consistency that he's built. I've seen this guy, shooting high score countless places, and even someone like CJ who, again, has continued to become a leader and continue to evolve as someone that we can look up to and someone that can lead us to the promised land. I think that through this podcast, it's a reflection of how you need to continuously move forward and trying to get better and put forth that consistency, because here at 30,000 downloads, I could just be happy with my accomplishments and just pack it up and just continue on with doing something else. But I think a big thing and a big quote that's kind of helped me to stay in the right direction and kind of put things into perspective for me was this quote, and I think hopefully it'll help with sharing to you guys. But it says that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And I had to read this a couple of times to understand it and for it to resonate to me. But when you think about it, we only get 100%. And if life is only 10% of what happens to you, a big majority of what happens and the things that basically spawn from your decision making is 90%, right? So it's unreal when you think about it, because so many of the interactions that we have throughout our life are basically tied to the decision making that we have. Priorities as far as what you have towards the goal that you're trying to accomplish, and trying to fight against your own inner thoughts and things that have been holding you back from achieving those goals, right? So for me, I just thought when I heard that, life is 10% of what happens and 90% of how you react to it, I just thought about all those times when I was recording the podcast and nobody was tuned in live, or when you didn't get amount of, views that I may have wanted. I could have easily reacted to that and just said, fuck it, I'm not doing this shit no more. I could have seen other people getting these big major deals and looking at myself and be like, I don't got shit. Why the fuck am I doing this for? But again, when you take something that happens to you and you flip it and try and continue to do things positively, there's no telling what you could accomplish from that. Had I stopped, I might not have gotten 4 different sponsorship deals throughout last season. I might not have been able to get the amount of opportunities that I've gotten professionally had it not been for the resume through consistency of this podcast. I think that influence is a big thing when it comes to not only podcasting, but being a leader in general. And I think leaders are the ones that are able to make rational decisions, not out of emotion, right? So one of the things we always talk about my brother being one of the most sanest people in the family is because he's always making those sound decisions. He's always being patient before he makes the next move. And I think, again, when you go back to the quote of life being 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we react to it, you really have to look within yourself and look. And I think that at times people can start, it's so easy for people to blame others or for people to blame the situations that they're in for why they're where they're at. But when we look within ourselves and we look at some of the decisions that we've made and, some of the priorities that we've kind of aligned for ourselves, we can start to look and try and, solve those problems that continuously happen to us. Like I said, one of my favorite quotes is, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So in the end, how we continue to respond to things and how we dictate the way things come to us is a big way of how we can kind of look towards the future and see how the things that are materializing for us. It took me a long time and a lot of mistakes. I'm not perfect here, man. I can sit here and tell you that I've made a bunch of costly mistakes that probably held me back from my overall goal, a bunch of times. But I just try to not make the same mistake twice and learn from those mistakes. One of the things that CJ's father told us is like, you don't lose, you either win or you learn. And, I've just thought that through learning and through continuously trying to challenge myself. I talked with my girlfriend about it before, about how, I'm continuously throughout my life trying to find ways to challenge myself. I think that if we all can take that upon ourselves as well to, challenge yourself, whether it be professionally, whether it be in a hobby, whether it be personally, in relationships, as long as you can continue to try and move in the right direction and be better than you were the last day, I think that's the biggest way that we can apply this quote of life being 10% of, what happens to us and 90% of how we react to it. Because there's so many people also times that, you have things that happen to them and they live in that past, or, you've had success back in high school. You were that high school superstar and you're still living in that moment of when you were 19, 20. And I think that when you play that game, it's a dangerous game because it's almost like quicksand that you're never going to get yourself out of. If you consistently live in those moments of when you shot 280 about 4 or 5 years ago, or when you had that girl that you dated that, you broke your heart 2-4 years ago, whatever the case may be. If you, rest your laurels in those things that's happened, you can never move forward and never advance and never create the progress that'll help you to get to those goals that you need. So, again, when I look at that quote of life being 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it, for me, it's just, again, not living in the past, continuing to build and basically live in the moment in a way, because at times we can get so caught up on the things that aren't happening to us at the speed that we want them that it can detract from, the progress that we're trying to make. So, for me, the overall, I guess, reflection that I've gotten from being so close to 30,000 downloads has just been, keep trying, keep trucking. I think that for us as human beings to continue to evolve and continue to challenge ourselves to create those goals and to set those things that we can accomplish, that's how we can get to those milestones, right? So, I would, if I wasn't challenging myself and continuing to try and put forth, the utmost effort in building myself, then I don't think this podcast would be half of where it would be. To have people like Marissa that tune in every time, have people like my boy Brian Spawn who tune in and send me messages of, them tuning in on their lunch break or anything like that. Those are the things that continue to inspire me and motivate me, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the audience of you all on Facebook Live, Instagram, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'm not stopping at 30,000 downloads. It's going to continue for me. I don't know what this journey is going to hold for me at the end of the tunnel, but all I'm here to say is I'm going to stay on the tracks, baby. Let's see where this train takes me. But, in terms of staying on the tracks, I think that the Mets have something huge upon their eyes that is a task that may seem unsurmountable. I talked to my father this morning, and I was like, damn, the Mets are 3 games out of that wild card spot. But, my father also reaffirmed to me that we got a whole month of baseball in September. And, my boy Justin McPhail, big shout out to him. He's a big-time baseball fan. But, I think that this type of baseball leading up to October is some of the best baseball that we can watch. It seems like every game seems to matter. And, those pennant races, those wild card chases, they mean even those 9th innings. I remember being at that Mets game where Jesse Winker hit that walk-off. It was only because the Braves had lost and the Mets needed to be in that winner take all so they can try and get that game and a half up. I think it's those types of plays and those types of games down the stretch that make postseason baseball and September baseball as exciting as it is. But again, the Mets are 3 games out of that wild card spot held by the last wild card spot held by the Atlanta Braves. But, the one thing that I think the Mets may have on their side is that the injury bug has bitten the Atlanta Braves, and they don't seem to be the championship caliber team that we've seen from them in years past. However, they're still the Atlanta Braves. They still got some of the top power hitters, on their roster. And going down the stretch, it's really going to be up to the Mets to kind of try and steal some of these series, even though they have one of the tougher schedules to end this MLB season. But I think that when you're talking about winning meaningful games, you have to start with the pitching. And from what I've seen, Manaea and Luis Severino have been the 2 best pitchers seemingly on that Mets starting rotation. And it's going to start with them. We're going to need some quality starts from them, and we're going to need some big-time wins, going into the 7th, 8th innings. Something like a Luis Severino where he pitches that complete game. Can we expect that from him every time? No. But to get some quality starts and to get to where we don't have to utilize that bullpen that has been struggling recently. So we're going to really have to rely on that starting pitching, starting with Manaea and Severino. But I think that regardless of whether the Mets do make it to the playoffs or do not make it to the playoffs, I think we do have to tip our cap to that dude, Francisco Lindor. He experienced some of the most rough and tough feedback from New York sports fans because for the amount of money that he was signed for, we were expecting instant success from him. And I think we just had to give it a little bit of grace period and understand that playing in New York is not easy. And Lindor this season has put up historically great numbers in a Met uniform that could potentially be one of the better seasons in franchise history. So I think that for Francisco Lindor to potentially have an opportunity to have a 30-30 season, it only reaffirms to us Mets fans that Lindor will be our franchise moving forward, because there's still question marks of whether Pete Alonso is still going to sign. Again, we've talked about the issues with the relief pitching. You got Jose Budo, who loves walking people and giving up runs late in games, which has been difficult to watch. Then seeing something like Edwin Diaz giving up a walk-off home run in San Diego, and he's supposed to be our ace in the hole. So, the Mets do have an uphill climb ahead of them, but it is not insurmountable like my father told me this morning. It's really going to have to lean on Lindor and Brandon Nimmo, who had to get slid down in the order, from some of his inefficiencies. But, we're going to have to see those guys step up, man. Someone like an Iglesias who's gotten some more time and has kind of had McNeil, eat the bench a little bit. We're going to have to see some more from him. Mark Vientos, who's had some pop in his back. We're going to need to see some run production from him to hopefully get this Mets team into the postseason because, again, like we said, it's going to be tough. But on the other side of the bridge over in the Bronx, I'm a big-time Mets fan, but you got to tip your cap to what the Yankees have been able to accomplish with this team. It's so easy to talk about Aaron Judge, who may arguably go down as one of the best Yankees of all time. He's hit his 51st home run. His back-to-back 50 home run seasons. We haven't really seen that recently. And I tell you what, it's not only offensively that makes Aaron Judge one of the more premier players in the MLB, but it's also his defensive prowess. When have we seen a guy that big move as fast as he does and move with the efficiency and that natural feel of where the ball is going to be? It just seems like we're always seeing some highlight catch from Aaron Judge. I know he had a little bit of injury issues at the beginning of the season, but for him to have that and to still hit 50 home runs, you got to put him up there as one of the best baseball players, in the last 10 years. But I'll say this. As great as Aaron Judge is, the fact that he's in New York pinstripes can only hurt the legacy in a way because that New York franchise is so used to winning. And not just winning, but winning championships. So how many times do we have to see Aaron Judge win these personal accolades? Or how many times do we have to see Aaron Judge take this team to the postseason and have them lose in the first round? I think Yankee fans are really, really tired of not seeing their team in the World Series. I think that when you talk about Derek Jeter and why he's one of the most beloved Yankees, it's because he took them to the promised land and then he delivered. So I think for Aaron Judge, if he wants to immortalize himself as one of the greatest Yankees of all time, because he's got a lot to live up to, he's going to have to deliver the New York faithful a championship. And it is not until the New York faithful get a championship will people truly appreciate Aaron Judge's greatness. Sure, it's good to see those 50 home runs up there, but until you take a World Series title home, there's always going to be that asterisk behind Aaron Judge as far as why he wasn't able to get the Yankees to that chip. And, like I said, I love Aaron Judge, but it's time. This is the same reason why, people look at Mike Trout and say he's one of the greatest, but they don't really give him that same respect because he hasn't even really gotten out of the first round of the playoffs. He hasn't had that team see that success. So, personal accolades are good and all, but don't forget why you play the game, right? But I think that outside of baseball, one of the things that we're really excited about coming up is the NFL season. And I think that it's the perfect time, being that we're like a week out from the start of the season, to make some of those early predictions. And, I tried to compile some of the questions that I've been asked over the last couple weeks as far as what my thoughts were leading into this NFL season. So I thought I'd share some of these questions with you and some of my quick responses. So first and foremost, the biggest question, which I feel like into this offseason that people continuously ask me, I wish my boy Andrew, rest in peace, would have been able to see his Jets coming into the season. But the biggest question is, are the Jets going to be a true contender? And I think with Buffalo kind of losing some of their firepower, it kind of makes them a little bit vulnerable. Even towards the end of the season, last season, they kind of limped a little bit. So I don't see Buffalo being as strong. I see Miami definitely being a team that's to beat in that AFC division. But I think that the Jets, with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, I think the first 2 or 3 weeks are really going to tell us, what this team really has. Because you have Breece Hall that's coming back off that ACL injury. And I think part of the reason why people don't realize why Aaron Rodgers was such a great player was because off that play action and when he was rolling out and being a mobile quarterback and trying to find those receivers downfield, you can't get to that level without a very strong run game. And I think with a healthy Breece Hall, it's only going to help for Aaron Rodgers to be able to set up the play action, create those reads downfield. And, we really got to see some health from him. I need to see, Aaron Rodgers, being mobile in the pocket, being able to evade that pass rush. And I think that, it starts with him. If we can see Aaron Rodgers not be a shell of himself, not seem to be hit by father time, I think this Jets team can definitely be a contender because even with a stagnant offense last season, they were still a top 10 defense and a team that created turnovers. When I watched my Chiefs play against the Jets, it wasn't until one of the final possessions that the Chiefs were able to get and pull out that win. So, the Jets have a solid defense. They have a championship contending defense. But it's always been a question of can the offense, back them up. And it's going to start with Aaron Rodgers. We're going to see in these first couple weeks. But just off the surface, I will say that the Jets can definitely be a contender. And then, if you're talking about a contender, you got to talk about who would they potentially beat. And we would be obtuse if we did not accept and to think that the Chiefs have a major chance at repeating for a third time. And I think that it's tough because Patrick Mahomes is a quarterback that continues to evolve. He continues to get better and continues to make his players around him better. So I think that can the Chiefs repeat? Absolutely. But in the same regard of what we talked about with the Jets and, why Aaron Rodgers needs to be healthy so that he can be dangerous, I think the Chiefs need to be healthy. We saw that, they kind of had a little bit of injury plagues happen throughout that postseason run, which made things a lot more interesting. So I think it's going to be really on Andy Reid to try and get some of those guys that are behind in the depth chart to try and get them some reps because not only can you, not account for those injuries, but at the same time, you have to make sure that when you have that backup that comes in ready to step up, that they are ready. Because one of the worst things is trying to put in someone that has not gotten any reps and expect them to go out there in a high-pressure situation to win. It's tough, man. So, I'm really looking to see the supporting cast of the Chiefs. And if the Chiefs can maintain their health, that will dictate to us whether they can repeat. And then, somebody who's coming in with a lot of uncertainty as well. Can Russell Wilson make a comeback? Is Russell Wilson washed? And I'm here to tell you guys that I don't know that Russell Wilson is washed. I just feel like Russell Wilson has to make football his number one priority. Now, I'm not here to say that, he's out here in these streets going crazy, wilding out. But when you're at the top or when you've achieved a Super Bowl, it's natural for sometimes that complacency to come in. And I feel like, to go back to the same quote, life is 10% of what's happened to us and 90% of how we react to it. I feel like for the majority right now, Russell Wilson is still living in the past of all of that success that he had in Seattle. Oh, I'm that guy. I deserve this starting spot. Haven't you seen my tape? But if you look at recently, the tape isn't outstanding. It's not groundbreaking. And I think that for Russell Wilson, he's got to take a look within himself and see, how can I make myself better? And even though he's a big, Super Bowl winning quarterback, has had all the accolades, could potentially be a Hall of Famer, you can still get better. Is he in the film room just as hard? Is he working out? I know the workout plan is crazy. He's always keeping his body in great shape. But mentally, right? Can he make the right reads? Can he let that pass go? Can he make that downfield pass with precision? Geez, my allergies are killing me. But I just think that for Russell Wilson, if he can stay out of the past and live in the present now, I think that that's going to make sure that he is not washed. And it's important because this is a make or break season for him. You had a chance with the Broncos and you get replaced by a rookie quarterback immediately. And now you're going into your third team with the Steelers, who are known for their success. They've had a winning season with their coach for, over a decade now. So if you see Russell Wilson come into a situation where they are used to winning and now they're not having that success, we might talk about Russell Wilson's career potentially being over. I'm telling you, this might be the last chance for Russell Wilson. And then finally, one of the questions that someone asked for me was, will Saquon Barkley have a huge year? And I think he will. I think that it's only realistic to think that if you get an upgraded offensive line, that you won't get much better results. Definitely losing Jason Kelce to retirement is going to hurt that offensive line. But sometimes, when an old dog goes out, you need that new pit bull to come in there and shake things up a little bit. And I think that Saquon Barkley still has got a lot left in the tank. I think that have injuries been a question for him? Of course. But I think that at times, knowing that Saquon Barkley doesn't have to be the entire offense, I think will allow him to kind of flow a little bit easier, see the holes a little bit better, make some of those catches downfield, and kind of stay healthy a little bit, because I think that at times with the Giants, it was easier for him to kind of get checked out a little bit. Sure, he's a guy that's a high effort guy, but it's only natural when you don't have much to play for. Are you going just as hard in those games? And, I think that in a new situation, a place where in Pennsylvania he played at Penn State, I think it'll be huge for Saquon to get that change of scenery, and that will relay some better results. I can totally see Saquon Barkley getting about 200, 300 receiving yards and over 1,000 rushing yards in this offense because, to have the weapons that he does with the Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown on the other side, even someone like Jalen Hurts, we haven't seen it, but you may see some option work between those two. That read option is dangerous when you have two guys that can explode for touchdowns at any moment. So I'm really looking to see Saquon in this change of scenery. I think it's going to be big for him. And, I'm looking to see easily over 1,000 yards rushing from Saquon. And then finally, leading out from the NFL, how much I'm a big fan of the WNBA. And, we're coming towards the end of the WNBA season after this Olympic break. And I think it would be without question to say that the New York Liberty are one of the favorites to win the entire thing. Could they potentially bring a championship to New York for the first time in franchise history? I definitely will be trying to go to a playoff game for the Liberty. I think that, what the Liberty have been able to do has been get better each and every year. I've seen someone like a Sabrina Ionescu step up her defense and not just be a three-point shooter. You've seen somebody like a Breanna Stewart who's continued to stay offensively aggressive and seek out those great shots. I've seen someone like a Sabali, Satu's sister, who continues to build her own presence in the game. Someone like Courtney Vandersloot, who had the injury to her face, but is showing that fortitude, showing that resilience to go out there and lead that team. I think the New York Liberty are a dangerous team. And I think they're a team that nobody wants to play. I know they just lost to the Connecticut Sun recently, but the Liberty have gotten the number on the Connecticut Sun over recent years. So, if it's not Connecticut Sun, you definitely got to give some Lynx some respect in there too, because the Minnesota Lynx with Nafisa Collier, she's been playing at an MVP level, and with the supporting cast of Kelsey McBride, it's just been a joy to watch the Minnesota Lynx be one of those surprise teams. And now, potentially a championship contender. They definitely did win the Commissioner's Cup, beating the New York Liberty. So it's going to be interesting to see, do the Liberty get their lick back in the playoffs? Do they make it that far? Is Minnesota as good as we say they are? We haven't even talked about Seattle, who's been one of those dangerous teams too, adding the Nneka Ogwumike. So the WNBA has been super exciting. It's been lit. We've seen an immense amount of quality basketball. And if you haven't gotten a chance to, I definitely think you guys should tune in before this season ends. But I think one of the biggest disappointments that has been in the WNBA has been the Atlanta Dream. Now, I know they've been hit by the injury bug. They lost Ryan Howard for a long amount of time. They just recently lost Cheyenne Tice Parker. It's going to be difficult for Atlanta because when you look at them on the outside looking in for that final playoff spot now, they're going up against the Chicago Sky, who continue to gain more and more confidence behind Chennedy Carter, Camila Cardozo, who's continued to learn how to be effective, and Angel Reese, who's been playing absolutely out of her mind, averaging a double-double now. The Chicago Sky are just continuously getting better. And then you look at the Indiana Fever, who have now passed Chicago and now in the 7th spot. Caitlin Clark continues to get more and more comfortable with the game. We talk about, as we're getting older in basketball, the game kind of slows down for us and we kind of are able to see some of those plays that maybe we didn't see as a kid. And I think that for Caitlin Clark, she's basically feeling that process right now before our eyes. The game is slowing down for her, and you're starting to see herself use the body to get some contact to get to the free throw line. Not necessarily needing to shoot that three-pointer all the time. Baiting, keeping her dribble to make that bounce pass in the lane to Aaliyah Boston. I mean, you look at what Caitlin Clark has done for her team. She's put Kelsey Mitchell at a much more elevated status and back into that all-star level that she was playing at before. You look at Aaliyah Boston, who has elevated her game each and every game with playing with Caitlin Clark. Nalissa Smith, who's been an absolute dog because she's got something to play for now. We've seen the Indiana Fever take an immense step up, and that's why it kind of leads me to this question of who's our Rookie of the Year. And it's tough because in one regard, you want to take Angel Reese because she broke the WNBA record for most double-doubles in a row. And then on the other flip side, you got someone like a Caitlin Clark who has been, constantly getting better. She made that team, Indiana Fever, from second to last place to now into a playoff spot and continuously getting better. I don't think it's a shoo-in for Caitlin Clark because Angel Reese, in the same regard, all the things that we talk about with Caitlin Clark, we can apply the same things for Angel Reese. She has made the teammates around her better. Someone like a Camila Cardozo, who was her direct rival, she's giving her confidence and helping her to get out there and stay out there and to stay confident. Offensive rebounding to get extra possessions for her teammates. Those are the things that Angel Reese brings. Now, is she as talented offensively as Caitlin Clark? Absolutely not. She has some things she's got to work on. But if you look at the body of work that Angel Reese has put in with just scoring and rebounding and defensively and making her team around her better, it is not a shoo-in. But if you had to ask me, again, I think what's going to give the edge to either of these two players is going to be how they finish this season as a team. And I think that with Indiana Fever playing as hot as they have and continuously knocking off some of these higher tiered teams in the WNBA, it's going to be hard not to give that award to Caitlin Clark. But, I'll say this, Angel Reese is just as much of a dog as Caitlin Clark is if she's not getting that respect. But I think that this has been a great episode. I want to thank everybody who continues to tune in, whether you're on Facebook Live, Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Radio, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, YouTube, you name it. We're on all streaming platforms. And, I just want to thank you all for continuing to be patient with me, continuing to listen to the things that I have to say, and just overall supporting me as a person. I think that it could have been so easy, again, for me to, take what life gave me and just give up. It could have been easy to just be like, you know what, this podcasting shit is really hard, man. Am I really cut out for this? Are people really going to listen to me? What if I had just stopped? What if I didn't have the confidence in myself? Would I have been able to make this shirt to make a tribute to my own friend that's no longer here with us? I think that through the consistency of continuing to get better, continuing to build in the right direction, that is what helps us to get through those situations where we're not as motivated, or when you feel like you need to make some sort of thing happen for you. The influence that I've been able to have on people through this podcast is what continues to make me hold myself accountable. Because I know if I don't put out a podcast, I know I'm going to get a text from Jeff. I know I'm going to get a call from my mom. I know my girlfriend Ashley's going to ask me, when am I recording? And I welcome those opportunities for people to hold me accountable, because at the end of the day, I had a coach that told me, I was always wondering, I'm like, why is he always yelling at me, man? Like, he's always yelling at me, always getting on my ass. Pause. But I remember him saying to me, it's that if I didn't care about you, if I wasn't yelling at you, then you really have something to worry about. Because, in essence, when people show that they care, they're giving you this feedback and they're showing you that they want you to improve, that's the type of support that you need. And that's the type of support that helps you to get to 257 episodes, to getting over 30,000 downloads. I need my boy Reese tuned in on Facebook Live. I need, Marissa tuned in on Facebook Live. I need those people that continuously believe in me, because without you all, I wouldn't be here, man. So I thank you guys so much. You guys have every part about why I've been able to potentially get up to 30,000 downloads within the next episode. I'm continuously trying to get better. I'm not living in the moment of, hey, I'm this podcaster. I've done everything under the sun. I don't need to do anything anymore. That's not how I'm living. I'm reacting to the fact that I'm still hungry, I'm still motivated, and I still have a lot of shit to say. So I just thank you guys so much for continuing to tune in with me. I love you all. Thank you so much for supporting me in everything that I do. Tune in to Talk That Talk Show every single week. We're going to upload this and put this to our website on talkthattalkshow.com. I love you all, and see you all next week.